now, with all three lanes starting to crash into Area 77's core.
All right, let's see what happens. Area 77 on the defense right now. BTK just trying to close it out. Hoon with the implosion. Hunter falls. Zia closing the distance. The base is at 60%. ISO looking for anything he can, but that is it. BTK still reigns supreme. After taking 2 losses, they still find a 4-game sweep, and they're on their way to MSC.
Imagine you and your teammates work your way through your regional qualifier, funding your own flights and boot camp, only to learn days later you've been banned for a rule that wasn't even in effect yet. I am not sure, and only BTK can say, whether they ever received a formal warning or written notice before Moonton's public announcement on June 30th. Let's rewind and unpack why this ban collapses under its own rationale and why it isn't based anywhere in the rulebook. First, let's hit the timeline. In mid-May, North America's spring split concludes. On the 26th, they reached out to BTK's manager and informed them that they were not allowed to participate in the HOC event, claiming it was a violation of the rulebook, but they never specified which rule was actually violated. Furthermore, the Moonton NA representative said, "I'm only here to notify BTK that they've broken a rule. If you want to know which specific rule, you'll need to ask the MSC tournament team." Later, the Moonton NA team created a group chat, where the main point emphasized was that players are not allowed to participate in a competing title. But again, no specific rule clause was ever cited. On June the 27th and 28th, 2 BTK players streamed that competing title during downtime. One player even landed that same day and was simply decompressing, adjusting to jet lag, and sharing casual content. Players deserve that freedom before their first match, yet those streams are now cast as violations. 2 days later, on June 30th, the ban is announced before the official tournament window ever opens. Now, I ask the first critical question. When do the tournament rules actually begin? Section 1 of the official rulebook spells it out. These rules apply to teams qualified to play from July 10th to August 2nd. Everything before July 10th, by the rulebook's own terms, lies outside its authority. In other words, the late June stream happened before the rulebook ever claimed authority, and the ban occurred before the window even opened. Next. Is there a hidden clause on competing game streams? Appendix B prohibits participation in rival titles, but it ties that ban strictly to the tournament period, July 10th through August 2nd. There is no earlier enforcement date. If the organizer intended to bind teams immediately upon qualification, the rulebook should have said so. All qualified teams are subject to these rules from the moment of qualification. It doesn't. We also need to reiterate, this decision is not based in the rulebook. No clause, none in Section 1, none in Appendix B, supports imposing a penalty before July 10th. This ban rests on no written policy. Pause and consider this. North American competitors live on the edge of uncertainty, stitching together modest sponsorships just to cover travel and training, shouldering every risk with no contract to catch their fall. They stand toe-to-toe with teams backed by legal counsel, guaranteed salaries, and full logistical support, yet face the same rigid expectations. When vague, retroactive rules land on players without a safety net, the facade of fairness collapses. What remains is a fragile system that punishes the very people who have nothing left to lose. What message does that send to every aspiring player without guaranteed backing? That you can be blindsided by invisible rules, punished for decisions you never knew were off limits. At its heart, this controversy exposes a yawning chasm between ink on a page and the hand that enforces it. When rules strike without warning and bind without a contract, they strip away the certainty and trust every competitor needs to step into the arena with confidence. If we value true integrity, we need these 4 must-haves. 1. Plain language. Rules written simply, with no jargon or hidden clauses, just clear do's and don'ts. 2. Early publication. All rules released well before competition starts so players have time to learn and prepare. 3. Defined timeline. Every rule must state exactly when it takes effect and when it ends, no question about timing. 4. Fair appeals. A straightforward, transparent process for players to challenge decisions and clear up mistakes. Our players deserve that clarity today. The next generation deserves a truly level playing field where every competitor, regardless of budget or backing, knows exactly where they stand. Only when every rule is laid out in daylight, with every consequence spelled out, can competition be truly fair and confidence restored.
And then, Moonton officially retains the final interpretation of these rules and is entitled to impose the penalties not listed below. So right here is like the kicker, where no matter what rule there is, no matter how you twist it, at the end of the day, they retain the final interpretation of the rule. So to argue whether you broke the rule or not, it doesn't fucking matter. Because they can just say, oh, we have the final interpretation. These dates that we give, oh, it's bullshit. They're just saying when the event is. It's not when the rules are in force. They can do whatever they want. There's like no point in the rulebook, essentially. There's no point in the rulebook. That rulebook that they send, that you're required to look at and whatnot, 0 point. Because they can say whatever is against their interests and whatever their interpretation is. And then in conclusion, if they proceed with this, I'm just going to summarize this. If they proceed with the activity, they will face disqualification. Again, they can't not do it anymore. They already signed a contract, and the ramifications, if they don't do it, are way too big that they have to do it. Moving on, there was a big back and forth discussion questioning the legality of this response. As I mentioned earlier, Dave has spent several thousands of dollars on lawyers to discuss this. But I won't get into it because I'm not a lawyer. But I will say, there was a short period of time where it was looking good for us. But all this legal talk, up until this point, throw it out the window. Don't think about it anymore. Get rid of it. Because it was discovered that although we had signed several EWC documents regarding our participation in EWC, we had not signed the rulebook itself. They just have not given that us a sign. It's not that we chose not to sign it yet. So now that this was brought into light, legally, Moonton did not have to reference any rules. They don't have to look at the rulebook anymore. They can just say, hey, it's up to them at that point. You can't do it. They gave us the middle finger, and it basically told us to fuck off, and that we were banned. And there was jack shit we could do about it. They would not even let us have a different NA substitute player to fly in to potentially replace and, fill up slots. They have already contacted other runner-up NA teams to potentially replace us, which is absurd because it's not even been a few hours since they told us this. They just thought right away. Fucking crazy, honestly. Now at this point, there were attempts to negotiate, can we have less penalty and make up for it with fines, or if we could do, a bunch of content for them at EWC to make up for it. All was null and void, and nothing would change their response. Now going back to that good short period of time I mentioned, Dave had a discussion with a Moonton NA representative. In this conversation, the representative was trying to convince Dave to change his mind. Again, in this period of time, it was looking good for us. I'm paraphrasing what this representative had said, in quote, "Since other MPL regions could not do this, we shouldn't be able to either." But this is so bullshit, bro. Because there are several reasons why those MPL regions cannot do this. Contractual reasons. First, number one, is exclusivity contracts. Exclusivity contracts pay a person or company to not play other games aside from their own that are contractually obligated to, and then they pay them money not to play those other games. Lots of top creators in Asia get these to make sure they don't make content that's not on MLBB. Moonton did this 1 year for NA after M3, and then nothing after that. We are not nearly as big as an MPL region. We don't get support at all. And look at the last few NACTs. From losing our LAN to losing our prize pool, and at this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if they come to my house and they ban me from living. How can you even compare other regions' treatment and then tell us we should act the same? They're giving us all the negatives and expecting us to abide by those negatives, but they're not offering any positives, any incentives at all to even listen to those negatives. Much less the negative, they haven't even stated these negatives, by the way. I do not hold Zane or Hoon accountable. Our region lacks monetary supports, and they are getting sponsors to support themselves. I doubt any other person would have refused these sponsors upfront, especially if they are obeying all the rules that we have access to. And I'm sure if they knew what results would come from this, they would have changed their minds initially. You might think it's a bad idea to make this video because it would ruin the chances for us, but look at us already, man. Like, how could it get any worse for the North American region? No tournament, no prize pool, getting banned. And at this point, I can't take getting butt by Moonton any longer. And, I have to say something. I don't know how you can help. I doubt this video will change anything. I'm just upset at my opportunity that was unfairly taken away by childish, petty people sitting in office chairs, looking down on the small guy. I feel bad for the team. I feel terrible for SAUL and the community that have supported us. And a team that has been forced to forfeit, as a team that has been forced to forfeit their spot in a major tournament, not because of any wrongdoing or failure to comply or failure to qualify, but because of business-driven restrictions imposed by Moonton. This is a clear example of how corporate power plays and overplays fairness, override fairness, and cause real harm to individual people and players. In history, when this kind of thing happens, only the people could really change the result of it.